this is the RPG Crawler, and welcome to another shelf of many things, where I take a look at small press and independent tabletop role-playing games and accessories. Now, not too long ago, I covered a little solo RPG called 4 Against Darkness, and I encourage you to take a look at my review over that. But to summarize, I was pretty pleased with it overall. It did a fair job of simulating a low-level old-school dungeon crawl and went up to about 5th level, all in a solo context. I knew then that it had an expansion that expanded the level range to level 9, and it wasn't too long thereafter that I actually ordered it. 4 Against the Abyss is available as both a PDF and a physical copy, and is just 66 pages of content that sit directly on the basic rules of 4 Against Darkness. In fact, this is not a standalone product at all. You will require 4 Against Darkness to play, so if you haven't decided whether that one's for you, or if you've already decided you don't have an interest in it, then this one's probably not going to change much. Now, 4 Against the Abyss from Ganesha Games is written by Andreas Villogoy, which is the same one that wrote 4 Against Darkness, and I'm probably mispronouncing that again. It consists of a series of expanded rules and tables designed for higher than 5th level characters, of course, for the 4 Against Darkness system. The version I'm reviewing is from April 2018, it's been sitting on my shelf for a little while, and due to the nature of PDF and print-on-demand releases, it may be updated after that version, and indeed after this video. Now, 4 Against Darkness uses only D6s for the main mechanic, which necessarily capped things at 5th level simply from a mathematical point of view. It also made the game simpler for a casual player to handle, since D6s are readily available even to non-gamers. With the expansion of levels up to 9, 4 Against the Abyss uses D8s to resolve some tests regarding 5th and higher levels. Now, as such, there are a few changes to the core rules, as well as the additional material presented in the book. Obtaining a D8 polyhedral dice is trivial for those who are interested in the tabletop hobby already, but for casual gaming may require an additional purchase if they aren't really gamers. Presentation is much the same as it was in 4 Against Darkness, with simple, readable, double-column text interspersed with black and white illustrations in a style reminiscent of old-school RPGs, and the occasional full-width table, mostly towards the end. Before I get into the actual content and rules themselves, I do need to say that not only does 4 Against the Abyss kind of suffer from the same sometimes questionable organizational decisions that 4 Against Darkness did, but at least in the version that I'm using for this review, there were some pretty glaring errors, at least in the front part of the book. Now, I'm not sure whether these derive from the writing itself or due to subsequent editing passes, but they were pretty noticeable. A lot of them are actually in the rules summary introduction at the front of the book, as I said, and either don't properly reflect things in context or don't make sense on their face. I was able to look through them, however, and figure them out just from looking at other related rules, and further in the book where the particular concepts were more properly formatted and formally stated, they tended to be more understandable. Just be aware of that issue unless it's fixed in later versions, of course. It caught me by surprise at first and almost put me off from reading the rest of the book. I'm just glad that certain rules questions were answered and made clear further in. Now, in terms of the rules, the book considers all of the additional material to be, effectively, another tier of play, one which must not only be qualified for, but actually achieved in play. This can be done a number of ways, either by having an already existing party where all characters are level 5, and then they have a backlog of experience ready to level them up, a party rich enough to allocate large amounts of gold to level them up to level 5 and beyond, or simply starting with a pre-made party in a published adventure. And yes, like 4 Against Darkness, there are standalone solo adventures produced. One of the reasons for these rules that I've mentioned is because the new monsters and challenges are substantially increased, even considering the additional powers that characters can obtain, so it's useful to have characters and players that not only have the experience to qualify, but additional gear and benefits that they may have obtained on their way. The initial introduction mentions several of the new rules expert parties are subject to, ranging from more complex monster groups to more deadly traps to changes in the way experience itself is awarded in the deeper levels of the dungeon. Minion groups, returning from 4 Against Darkness, may have leaders with them in the Abyss, and new combat structure rules are needed for characters to face these mixed groups. In addition, characters may now face multiple bosses at once, which also requires new rules, just to maintain fairness with the abstract way that combat is handled in this system overall. There are a number of new secrets or benefits that characters can use with the clue system from 4 Against Darkness, as well as expert skills. Rather than using experience rolls to level up, they may be used to obtain expert skills instead, which may grant additional abilities or specialize an existing character as you take them. These are limited to certain character classes. For instance, Brawler reduces the penalty for attacking without weapons, but may only be taken by the Barbarian or the Warrior. Experience rolls may also be used to learn expert spells for spellcasters, elves or wizards, which are the only 2 real spellcasters in the system. There are several more powerful spells available only to expert tier characters. A new hireling system has been added, although it is relatively abstract. There are 2 types, retainers and professionals. Characters can hire 0th level retainer characters that cannot level up, but do provide specific bonuses or skills to use on an adventure. For instance, a bodyguard may provide basic fighting and defense for one main character, while a lantern bearer just carries a lantern, so that the main character they're associated with can use both hands. Professionals, on the other hand, are hired between adventures and provide a single service. Alchemists may produce potions, sages may produce a bonus clue along with the first clue that you find after you hire them, and so on and so forth. Some of these bonuses are more useful than others, but costs vary appropriately, both for professionals and the rest of the hirelings. So far, a lot of the new rules have basically been ways to eat up treasure and boost character effectiveness, and it's necessary because of some of the other new systems. There's now a madness system that can wear on expert parties as they adventure further into the abyss and encounter otherworldly horrors. Characters may now encounter vampires and lycanthropes that can afflict them with their particular curses and then turn them into enemies over time. Something called the Dark Plague can now be encountered as well, resulting in a deadly illness that can spread from character to character. Randomly generated campaign plots have been added to give characters a reason to be in the dungeon aside from just exploring it, and some may link multiple dungeon excursions together. Finally, there are a large number of new encounter tables, treasure tables, and so forth that replace pretty much all of the tables from 4 Against Darkness, except for the dungeon layout tables, which are pretty much used intact for 4 Against the Abyss. Now, these tables present sometimes much more deadly encounters, traps, and more powerful and valuable treasure. However, they do utilize the same rules for resolution as the ones in 4 Against Darkness did, barring new rules to handle more complex encounters, of course. The book closes out with some handy summary tables of the new skills, hirelings, and so forth that you can refer to during play. So for those of you who watched my 4 Against Darkness review, you know that I had a generally positive view as I said. It is a compact, relatively easy to pick up and play, solo dungeoneering experience that can be used as a rules-light group RPG in a pinch, and really kind of satisfied a particular niche of play that I've long been looking to fill. It did have its issues, and I won't repeat them here, but you can review my review of it if you want a more in-depth look. As for 4 Against the Abyss, I think it's an adequate expansion that tries very hard to add more complexity to the existing rule set, but I think that the cracks are beginning to show at the seams of the system. The necessary boost to the dice of a D8 and the accompanying rules necessary are functional, but I can see where further expansion may be problematic if a similar take were to be taken any further than what's already offered in this book. You're going to need some serious care to further expand it, and the additional rules and adventure options, while nice, take it more firmly from the casual RPG niche to the full-time tabletop RPG niche. Now, I don't personally have a problem with that, but I can see where if you were using this system as a rules-light group system, you may as well just start using a full-on RPG at that point. As I said before, organizational issues that were present in the original 4 Against Darkness still rear their ugly head, but not to the point that they did in that book. I think most of that has to do with the fact that there's just only a limited amount of additional material, so you really can't scramble it that much. That having been said, I still enjoy playing with it, and I will recommend it since it pretty much completes the dungeon crawling level range that you'd have seen in old school tabletop games while maintaining that simplistic feel. Above 9th level, the old school tabletop games kind of started to diverge into either grand overland quests or domain running. So I think it's a good cutoff point for the series as a whole, although I would be interested in seeing how Ganesha Games ever does anything regarding expanded rule systems if they decide to. I'll probably take a look at them. Now, there's a lot of really interesting concepts in the Abyss as a whole, and I appreciate the attention to detail that was given, but I wonder if it's not a bit too much to handle adding it all at once. So, while I do recommend it, check out 4 Against Darkness first if you haven't already. And I'd say only move on to 4 Against the Abyss if you find that you really like 4 Against Darkness and you regularly play your characters to the maximum level and want more. Also, make sure you can handle the additional rules complexity, since as a solo RPG, simplicity is really the watchword. Once you start adding additional rules, it starts to become more difficult to run as a solo RPG. If you're playing by the book, 4 Against the Abyss is probably going to eat up some characters. And rightfully so, since it is an entirely new tier of deadliness. That will somewhat limit how much you'll probably be referencing the book, unless you're quite lucky, at least at first. But hey, I know some people really do like that extra bit of challenge. I know I do from time to time. And with that, I'll leave it there. The link will be in the description below to pick it up, both in print and PDF versions. This has been the RPG Crawler with Shelf of Many Things 4 Against the Abyss. If you like what you've seen, remember to leave a like, comment if you've got any feedback, and subscribe for more RPG content, both tabletop and computer. Until next time, take care and goodbye.